We're going to start in just 1 minute. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay, great. You want to take a sip? Go ahead. Yeah. You want to? Okay. You ready? Okay. All right. Hey, there we go. All right. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm Councilmember Will Jawando. I'm joined here by several of my colleagues, including my partner, Councilmember Mink, in the introduction of these two bills. I want to thank her and them and our many, many residents and community members who have come today for the introduction, the press conference around the introduction of two bills that were introduced this morning. The Unmasked ICE Act, which I authored, and Councilmember Mink will speak to the County Values Act. Both of these bills are related and complementary, and unfortunately required at this moment in our history. They make clear that we don't want ICE operating in our community. We don't want them in our public spaces, and we don't want them to be masked and hiding their identity, because we know what's happening. It's intimidating our residents, and they're avoiding accountability. I want to recognize a few people at the beginning here. Ashma Talwar from Senator Van Hollen's office, Krista Burton from Congressman Raskin's office. I don't see her, but I know she was scheduled to come. And I want to thank the many, many organizations, many of whom are represented behind us, and I'm going to list them so you know who they are. Montgomery County, who have signed on to both of these bills. Montgomery County Immigrant Rights Collective, MoCo IRC, the Montgomery County Educational Association, SEIU Local 500, Montgomery County Latino Democratic Club, the MoCo Pride Center, Inc., CASA, Action in Montgomery, the Montgomery County Women's Democratic Club, the Rosebrook Presbyterian Church, Project Safe, Muslim Voices Coalition, the Montgomery County Jewish Collective, the Silver Spring Justice Coalition, Rockville Renters United, the NAACP of Montgomery County, Young People for Progress, Shepherd's Table, Community Action Board, and the Maryland Association of Administrators and Principals. And I might be missing someone because additional had signed on, but thank you to those who have signed on. 13 days ago, a 37-year-old mother named Renee Nicole Good dropped her 6-year-old son off at school in Minneapolis. Minutes later, she was dead. She was shot by a masked ICE agent. Renee was a U.S. citizen, not that it should matter, a poet, a mother of 3. Her neighbors called her, quote, one of the kindest people they knew. Now her children, unfortunately, will grow up without their mother. And this is what federal immigration enforcement, unfortunately, looks like in 2026. Armed men in masks, no accountability, no transparency. And this isn't just happening elsewhere, it's happening right here in Montgomery County. Ask Rezar Zavar, abducted by ICE while walking his dog in Gaithersburg, sent to a detention center in Texas for 77 days. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Or Mark Anthony Briseno, who you'll hear from, a Seneca Valley High School senior, whose life was changed when masked federal agents snatched his father from a parking lot just down the road in Silver Spring. We've come together to say in a loud voice, not here not in Montgomery County. And let me just speak specifically about masks. Throughout our history, masks have been used in our country, and in particular by American law enforcement, to shield the wearer from accountability. They've been used for terror, for impunity and anonymity from violence. That was true at our founding as we celebrate 250 years here in the county and the country. And it's true today, unfortunately, with federal law enforcement. In the 1920s, when the Ku Klux Klan reemerged, its founder, William Simmons, bragged that Klan members existed, quote, at every level of law enforcement, that the sheriff was often the first to join the Klan when they came to town. In Anaheim, California, the Klan took over the city council and let police patrol in Klan uniforms instead of badges. That's the history of masks and law enforcement in our country. One of terror, one of impunity, and one of violence. It's one we reject here in Montgomery County. And our law enforcement rejects it. Any law enforcement officer worth their salt will tell you, you don't build trust by hiding who you are. You don't keep people safe by hiding who you are. Today, history is repeating itself. The FBI has issued bulletins that warning that criminals are posing as ICE agents, and they're urging real agents to clearly identify themselves. This is the FBI. Kash Patel's FBI is warning people that that's what's happening. In Los Angeles, when masked agents grabbed Andrea Velez off the street, her mother called 911 to report a kidnapping, because that's exactly what it looked like. So that's why we're here introducing these bills. That's why I'm introducing, with all my colleagues here, Bill 526, the Unmasked ICE Act. It'll prohibit law enforcement, federal, state, or local, from wearing a mask while interacting with the public in Montgomery County. There are common sense exceptions for medical masks, for SWAT operations, and for emergency situations like extreme cold weather. However, masks should never be worn to intimidate residents and to avoid accountability. This is not normal. This is not democratic. This is not who we are. As I've said, safety requires trust, and trust requires transparency. My 7-year-old son, I said earlier, celebrated his birthday over the weekend. He knows that if you hide your face, it's because you're doing something wrong. It's not honorable. It's not right. And when we legislate no masks should be used for this purpose, that's not a radical idea either. ICE, prior to 2025, did their job without masks. Ask a federal judge who last week was hearing cases on their ban in LA County and in California. The judge said, quote, why can't they perform their duties without a mask? They did so until 2025. Did they not? In asking the government. We've seen the horrible videos of how ICE is terrorizing our communities, residents across the country, including here in Maryland. And today we'll hear directly from some of those residents about their experiences with ICE. We need to act now, and we need to do what we can at our level of government. And I want to thank the folks at the State House who are introducing similar legislation. We need to do it at every level of government to stand up for who we are and what we believe in. This is about real safety for our residents. And this is one of the moments where history will ask, did we do our part? Final thing I'll say is the 10th Amendment is clear. 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Supreme Court has been clear. The federal government cannot commandeer local resources. They cannot dictate how we manage our own property. They cannot force us to participate in their regime of terror. These bills do not stop ICE from operating. They set a basic standard. If you want to act as law enforcement in our community, show your face like every other officer. This is not obstruction, it's accountability. I'm grateful to all of our residents who are rejecting what's happened and what's happening and are standing up for what is right. And they're asking us to do the same. They're begging for us to do the same. We heard testimony in the Trust Act just last week saying, please do more to keep us safe. And here we are the day after Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. This is the best time I think we could have picked to show we're listening. Dr. King once said, one of my favorite quotes, the law can't change hearts, but it can restrain the heartless. And the policies and actions we're seeing from this federal administration are heartless. So we'll get through this together. It won't be easy. If we get sued, we get sued, but we're doing the right thing. So with that, I'll turn it over to first my colleague and good friend, Councilmember Mink.
Good afternoon. I shared this from the dais today, but I'll share it again here. Yesterday, I was intending to call one of our local imams, and I accidentally called a friend with the exact same name from my community organizing days, who I've previously said to myself, make sure you don't do this. But I called him. He answered, and I could hear in his voice that something was wrong. He told me he's in Minneapolis. He's from here. He went there to help, as have some other community organizers. He couldn't talk long, but what he told me was, Kristen, whatever you think it's like, it's worse. It's so much worse. He said, do whatever you can to prepare. We have all seen the videos of what 3,000 lawless, unaccountable, masked federal agents looks like, crashing into vehicles, pulling out the drivers, arresting parents driving to the hospital with sick children, arresting people in hospitals and medical centers who are actively receiving care. We have seen that they will commit assault and murder. The school system has opened up remote schooling there, and there are now teachers who are teaching from classrooms that are empty of students and full of diapers and food and other mutual aid items that then they will go to deliver to families who cannot safely leave their homes. You may have seen photos of the grandfather, Chung-Lee Scott Tao, a US citizen with no criminal record, who was awoken from a nap yesterday by ICE agents breaking down his family's door. They pointed guns at the family. They refused to look at or take identification documents. And then they took him outside into the sub-freezing Minnesota weather in his underwear and sandals, in handcuffs, as his 4-year-old grandson cried. They returned him a few hours later without comment or apology. Just recently, I think it was last week, in Hillendale, I came upon ICE with a large group of people who they had all just arrested out of the same van, and a teenager standing by in his pajamas. I believe he had tracked his dad's phone there, is my guess. So this was a teenager watching his dad be taken away by ICE. And what did ICE do? They detained him as well, in his pajamas, in the cold. It was cold. It was so cold that I was having a hard time working my phone. He had his papers in his pocket. He was saying, can you get them to look at my papers? They're in my pocket. He had come with his papers in his pocket because that is the reality that we are living in right now. And even as I identified myself as a county council member and asked them, why are you detaining him? Will you look at his papers? Why won't you look at his papers? The majority of them, masked, simply turned away. We would all like to hope that the extremes of this federal occupation won't be unleashed here, but the reality is that while we don't know exactly what's coming or when it's coming, what we do know is what's already happening here is in many ways illegal and unconstitutional, and in all ways immoral, and in opposition to who we are and what we stand for here in Montgomery County. It is already ripping apart families. It is already ripping families away from our community. It is already traumatizing our children. It is already preventing our residents from accessing resources and even leaving their homes. And we are hearing clearly our community is calling on us to take action and to continue taking action. So what the County Values Act does is expand on a bill that was passed at the state level last year with the help of many of the groups who are involved in this effort today. That state law mandates that a judicial warrant requirement be used in certain sensitive locations, and the state defines sensitive locations as public schools, public libraries, healthcare facilities operated by the state or local government, facilities operated by the comptroller, and courthouses. But of course, we here in Montgomery County, we can look at that and say, we should, of course, be doing that everywhere where we have control. That's the standard that we should be applying. So that's what this bill does. It expands that standard to all county facilities. This means that at any county facility, our residents will know that no ICE, no immigration enforcement will be admitted into an area that is not open to the general public without legal review determining that they have a valid judicial warrant. It requires signage, barring immigration enforcement from all those non-public areas. It requires staff training, and it also prohibits any immigration enforcement activities in our county-owned parking lots, garages, and vacant lots. We have seen that those lots are spaces that ICE uses. They stage in parking lots. They transfer detainees in parking lots. They hang out and drink coffee together and scare local employees and residents in parking lots. And so this bill will make clear, not in our parking lots, not in our garages, not in any vacant lots, not anywhere that the county has control, we are drawing a hard line and we are saying no. We also encourage all businesses to take the same stance. And because we know that ICE does not respect laws, the County Values Act also requires county staff to report such activities up the chain so we can make sure that we have appropriate signage posted and erect physical blockades where appropriate to prevent ICE from accessing those areas where they like to lurk on little used patches of parking lot and corners of garages. If our residents aren't using those spaces, ICE is not going to use them either. This is about ensuring we are making it as difficult as possible for ICE to access and operate on county property. We can't make ICE agents operate lawfully, but what we can do is employ the strongest possible protocols at every facility the county owns or operates, fully train our staff to respond to emergencies, and even block off vacant parking lots that ICE tries to use. I have had some people ask how we will enforce the laws. And my answer goes for this, as well as the Unmask ICE Act. We have laws against murder, and they still shot Renee Good. This is a lawless federal administration, and we still have a job to do. We still have standards, and we're going to stand by them. We are going to use our county laws to get all our ducks in a row, to ensure that we are doing everything possible to protect our residents and be prepared for whatever is coming next, and to draw clear lines in the sand and make crystal clear who we are, who we stand with, and what we stand against. Thank you all for being here today. Now we're going to turn it over to our council colleagues to speak. Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I'm Kate Stewart. I'm the council member for District 4, and as a representative for the area where we have seen a great deal of ICE activity, where we have seen federal agents taking and kidnapping people off our streets, terrorizing residents by staging in our neighborhoods, I'm here today to say that I stand behind the actions that this council has taken and will continue to take, because we need to stand up for our communities. And I'm here today supporting both of the bills that were introduced this morning. Last week, in our committee hearing, we were filled with people coming to talk to us about the actions we needed to take here in Montgomery County, and to remind us that Montgomery County is about creating a safe and welcoming county, especially for our immigrant communities. And in particular, that day we heard from many students and young people who demonstrated their resilience and strength. And they also talked to us about their frustration and demanded that we do more to stand up for our Montgomery County values. Some of the testimony that was provided last week has stayed with me. One person said, "What is the point of having a county government if you aren't here to protect us?" They call my parents aliens, but I have only known them as loving, kind people. You need to preserve trust, not be complicit. ICE is invading our neighborhoods, breaking into cars and taking people many times right in front of their families. ICE is blatantly and unlawfully profiling people based on the language spoken, the vehicles driven, or the origin of their names. These actions are purposeful to harm individuals and to tear down our community and terrorize people. And in Montgomery County, what we're saying is that we are not going to back down. We have been and we will continue to prepare. We here today and our council will stand strong and protect our diversity and our communities. Because what is the point of all of us holding these positions of power if we do not use them at this time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stewart. Next will be Councilmember Shebra Evans.
Good afternoon. It's so good to see everyone, not under these circumstances, but I am proud today to stand with my colleagues as a co-sponsor supporting the Values Act and the Unmask Act. I'm supporting it because it aligns our laws to our values. There is no reason why anyone living in Montgomery County should feel unsafe interacting with the local government, with law enforcement. There is no reason why our residents should feel unsafe living in their communities, period. I believe that it's so important here in Montgomery County that we're providing legislation that will allow our residents to know upfront that we're trying to ensure that we continue to build trust, that we're providing clarity, and that we're also making sure that you're not living in fear and intimidated. And so what I love most about Montgomery County is that when we govern with our values front and center. My colleagues have said much of what I would want to say. I've not been able to. What I will say is that it's been important that people have come forward to share their stories. I've not had the experience myself, but hearing the stories up close and personal, it makes a difference, and I'm proud to stand with my colleagues and with community members behind us to make sure that we're doing all that we can to make everyone feel safe and heard in our county. Thank you.
Next, Councilmember Lorianne Sayles.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the lead sponsors of both of these bills, the Unmask Bill and the Values Act that was recently introduced by my colleagues, Council Members Mink and Jawando. I want to thank them for their leadership and their more clarity in this moment for these urgently needed bills. I also want to thank all of my colleagues, co-sponsors, and community advocates who are bravely standing with us in this moment. As local policymakers, we have a duty to uphold our residents' rights and ensure our facilities are safe for everyone and foster trust between our communities and law enforcement so that public safety truly protects everyone in our community. Over the past year, it has become particularly clear that ICE threatens all of these values. The recent murders of Renee Nicole Good and Keith Porter Jr. are not isolated tragedies. They reflect a deeply troubling pattern. We have seen ICE act lawlessly and violently, disregard constitutional protections, and engage in racial profiling. Residents locally and nationwide have been targeted near schools, places of worship, and while traveling to work or seeking medical care. The fear has exacerbated the challenges we face in eliminating truancy, financial instability, racial disparities in healthcare access, and mistrust in local law enforcement. For me, this is personal. I'm the daughter of Jamaican immigrants. I know firsthand that immigrants strengthen our community and sacrifice their lives in search of better opportunities for themselves and their loved ones. I will not stand idly by as a broken system is weaponized in an attempt to demonize and mischaracterize the plight of immigrants as strangers in the communities they helped build. I proudly join my colleague in sponsoring the Trust Act that was introduced last week by Council President Fani Gonzalez to enshrine existing policies against discrimination and voluntary collaboration with ICE. At last week's public hearing for the bill, we heard powerful testimony from dozens of residents whose sense of safety has been shattered. They made clear that the Trust Act is only a first but essential step toward further action. Our residents demand action, not more excuses. Bill 326, the County's Values Act, ensures these protections are not just words on paper, but that county staff are trained and equipped to defend the rights of everyone in our care. I also support Bill 526, Unmask ICE Act. Given the historic atrocities unjustly carried out by those donning masks and hoods, we cannot and will not allow this terror to proliferate in our county. I recall during COVID when some law enforcement departments loudly rejected wearing masks when they were supposed to be keeping our communities and themselves safe. Now we are faced with strangers coming into our communities, donning masks, and getting passes for committing crimes against our residents. So I'm proudly signing on to these bills to ensure residents can distinguish masked ICE agents from our trusted public safety officers who will comply with the mandates we set forth on masking when on duty to differentiate themselves from these unlawful agents. While these measures will not stop ICE everywhere, we can ensure guardrails on how they operate within the borders of Montgomery County's jurisdictions. And I implore my colleagues to support both of these bills unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales. Councilmember Evan Glass.
I want to thank the sponsors of these two pieces of legislation. We have too many of our neighbors who are living in fear. We have too many of our neighbors who have disappeared. And the role of local government is to help and support our local communities. We have now introduced 3 pieces of legislation here in Rockville to do everything to safeguard, protect, and support every member of our community. That is what we are elected and entrusted to do. Support and protect every neighbor. And I am proud of our efforts to step up. And I know that there are naysayers in the community who say we do not have the jurisdiction or the authority, but we have to do everything we can to make sure everybody feels and is safe in our community. And if that means going to court, well, we will go to court because this is a national battle and we have to make sure we fight at every place we can. Here in Montgomery County, we value our diversity, which means we need to stand up and continue fighting for it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to really the most important voices today, which is our community voices. Starting off with MoCo IRC, the Montgomery County Immigrant Rights Collective, and Gabby Rivera is going to be speaking on their behalf.
Good afternoon. I'm mainly here speaking Thank you. Mainly here speaking directly to the council members, especially those who aren't here today. I am Gabriela Rivera, a proud daughter of two immigrant parents, both from El Salvador. I'm here once again to speak on behalf of Montgomery County Immigrants' Rights Collective, MoCo IRC. We're a volunteer-led network that leads Know Your Rights education, rapid response, and mutual aid to directly impacted families. I'm here to urge you to support Bill 326, the County Values Act, and Bill 526, the Unmasked ICE Act. As ICE continues to operate with lawlessness and lack of accountability, you have a responsibility to do everything within your power to protect our residents and our public spaces. Community members have made this painfully clear during the Trust Act hearing last week. As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things IRC does is mutual aid. Through this work, we have heard countless stories from different families who have been directly impacted by ICE. One of them being a story of a mother who fled her home country after her son was murdered there due to gang violence. She had another son who is now 4 years old. In hope to give her other son a better future, that's why she migrated to the US. Earlier this year, she was detained, and within 4 days, she was deported, leaving behind her 4-year-old child with only a babysitter. In desperation, the 4-year-old American citizen had to leave the country to reunite with his mother in the very same place his eldest brother was assassinated. The childhood he was promised as an American citizen was stripped away due to the heartlessness of these agents. There is currently a 19-year-old who had to become a parent overnight. With both parents gone, he is raising his younger siblings while sacrificing his own childhood and youth. These nightmares are happening because ICE is allowed to operate unchecked. The County Values Act helps by expanding protections to all county facilities requiring judicial warrants, training, signage, and legal review. It also closes a key loophole by banning immigration enforcement in county-owned parking lots and vacant land. The Unmasked ICE Act addresses the issue of accountability. When armed agents cover their faces, they are not protecting public safety. They are shielding themselves from responsibility. This bill makes it clear that masked agents operating in Montgomery County are not county police and are acting in violation of our laws. So, as those county members sit here facing the public they serve, accountable for their decisions, our communities also deserve that same accountability from those exercising power over their lives. And what these ICE agents are doing is being cowardly. And by not passing these bills, you will prove to be just as cowardly as they are. Transparency is essential to public trust. MoCo IRC has worked to earn the trust of the community and will continue to build that trust. When our community seeks help, they come to us and not you. And as someone who is getting paid to build trust in the community, we haven't seen much from you. So I urge you to please pass all 3 acts because together these bills send a clear message. Montgomery County will not be complicit in fear, intimidation, or abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Next, we'll hear from a great partner in this work, CASA, and I think Amos is going to represent CASA. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. It's an afternoon already. Yeah. My name is Amos Fon, and I'm a proud immigrant from Cameroon. I'm a church leader, a member of CASA, and I've been resident in Montgomery County for a while now. Just to take a step back, I first came to this country over 20 years ago as a student. And I went back to my country and continued work until violent conflict emerged in Cameroon, the country with one of the oldest presidents, who just took another mandate at the age of 93. 4 years back, I returned as a scholar at the University of Notre Dame And when the country was so bad, my country, that I couldn't go back, somebody told me that Montgomery County could be a good place where I could settle. And of course, I came over. I'm here today because my community is under attack, and I mean Montgomery community. Many of us fled violence and persecution in our home countries and came to Montgomery County seeking safety and protection. Today, we need that protection more than ever. The County Values Act and the Unmasked Eyes Act are necessary to keep our families safe. And I am here to urge you to pass these bills so that my community knows that we matter and that Montgomery County stands with us. I know fear because I live it and see it in my community every day. For Black, brown, and African immigrants like me, fear does not end when we arrive in the United States. It shows up in racial profiling, in being targeted, and in immigration enforcement that treats us as threats instead of human beings. As a church leader, I visit congregations all across the county, churches that were full of people, and people are now almost empty. People are not staying away because they lost faith. They are staying away because they are afraid. Afraid to drive, afraid to go to work, afraid to worship, afraid to seek support, afraid to buy groceries, afraid to do the simplest things like walk from the car to a mall. This is real, and we all know it. The Montgomery County we want is not where immigrants like me are afraid to go to church, where families avoid hospitals, where our children hesitate to go to school because ICE might be waiting in their school parking lot, where no one knows if today will be the day their families are torn apart, and this happens every day. Is this the kind of life any of us would want for ourselves or our families? I don't think so. This is why today I'm asking our leaders to put themselves in our shoes, to feel what we feel, and to pass these bills to protect our community. This is not just an immigration issue. This is a moral issue. No one should live in fear because of their accent like mine. I was told that if you don't speak English with the right accent, it means you know another language. Today, I understand it's a different thing here. People should not be profiled because of the color of their skin like mine, or the county or country they came from, or where they were born. Prohibiting federal, state, or local law enforcement from wearing masks while on duty is the right thing to do. It creates accountability and ensures those agencies are following the laws and not abusing their power. Requiring a judicial warrant in county facilities will protect our community from ICE's violent tactics and warrantless kidnapping, because that is what is happening. It is not arrest. To get somebody with a mask and also without a warrant is a kidnap. It is not an arrest. I urge you to do what is right and pass the County Values Act and Unmasked Eyes Act and show that Montgomery County is a place where all people are treated with dignity and respect. Thank you very much for your time.
Let's see. Next up, we have a student in our community. She's 16 years old. She attends Seneca Valley High School, and she's with the organization Students Fair. Jerry Ann?
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Martinez Mapp, and I'm a student at Seneca Valley High School. As students, we are taught by Montgomery County that Montgomery County values the principles of safety, inclusion, and opportunity. But for many students around the county, the presence of ICE near our schools, our supposed safe spaces, create fear that impacts our learning as we focus more on the safety of our peers, our teachers, and our families rather than our schoolwork. Some worry that a parent may not be home when they return from school, while other avoids extracurricular activities or experience anxiety, which directly impacts their experience of trauma. Just about a week ago, a student, a friend, was detained outside of school, being dragged on the floor in the process by a masked ICE agent. And why? Because he decided to stand up to violent masked ICE agents that are terrorizing students in the very place that they go to learn. Currently, 4 students that Students Fair is aware of have been detained. That number is only going to rise unless we act now. Immigrants are essential to our community. They're our neighbors, they're our workers, our caregivers, and our classmates. When ICE operates without transparency and are allowed to hide behind a mask, it undermines our community's trust in law enforcement. Families and students become afraid to leave their homes or go to work or go to school, which is reflected by the sheer amount of absences and empty hallways that our schools are currently facing. Instead of feeling protected, our students are feeling targeted. I urge our elected officials to protect students and families by simply codifying practices that are already in place. Montgomery County's strength comes from its people. When we stand together to protect our students' families and our neighbors, we ensure that our community values dignity, safety, and justice. Students shouldn't have to carry the weight of fear of immigration into classrooms. Families shouldn't live in constant fear and anxiety due to masked ICE agents roaming around their neighborhoods violently. By supporting the Values Act and the Unmasked ICE Act, you create a county of promise backed up by real, tangible policies that support our immigrant community. Will you make a step toward the right direction and be a part of a movement, or will you stand idly while our citizens are beaten and killed at the hands of ICE? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry-Ann. Next, we're going to hear from one of our educators who are dealing with this and seeing the backlash on the front lines every day, unfortunately. Orchid Dargahi, yes, I want to say it right, ELA/ELD teacher at Newport Mill Middle School. Let's give her a round of applause.
You cannot claim to care about children and support ICE. You cannot claim to put families first and support ICE. You cannot condemn violence and support ICE. Good afternoon. My name is Orchid Dargahi, and I am an English Language Arts and English Language Development teacher at Newport Mill Middle School, a member of Montgomery County Education Association, and a proud daughter of 2 immigrants. I'm speaking before you today in support of the County Values Act and Unmasked ICE Act. Before I do anything in my classroom, I need to make sure that my students feel safe. There's a tiny, almond-sized portion of our brain called the amygdala, and it's responsible for processing emotions, including fear and anxiety. As educators, we think about how to calm the amygdala as part of our instruction. In my content area of language acquisition, linguist and educational researcher Stephen Krashen theorized that a child's emotions can either disrupt or promote how they learn a language, which you may know as the affective filter hypothesis, directly relevant to our emergent multilingual learners, many of which are immigrants. You're probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which emphasizes safety and security right after the most basic physiological needs like eating and sleeping. These topics are taught at length in every education program across the country. At school, it's imperative that educators prioritize emotional, mental, and physical safety before creating any lesson plan or assessment. I tell you this because this idea of safety is not the reality for an overwhelming number of our students who are immigrants themselves or children of immigrant families. I tell you this because ICE has robbed children of their mothers and fathers. I tell you this because I field questions like, can ICE just come into our school before teaching kids how to write a paragraph? I tell you this because it's time to acknowledge the harsh reality of ICE's lawlessness, codify regulation, and hold them accountable for the reign of terror that is ripping through our community. ICE has devastated my family. On the morning of June 24th, 2025, ICE detained my cousin's fiance, Sean. Sean migrated from Iran in 1998 when he was 9 years old. He and his family sought refuge from the current regime in Iran. 4 agents kidnapped him outside of his home on the day of his promotion at Dark Cars in Silver Spring. He didn't get to say goodbye to his family. My cousin Sanaz found out what happened from their Ring camera footage. Sean's children are 2 and 4 years old. They have suffered without their father now for over 6 months. Sean is still detained, and at this point, unlawfully, even by the federal government's standards, because the federal government cannot hold someone beyond 180 days without showing plans of imminent deportation. 6 months for Sean was December 24th, 2025. It is now January 20th, 2026. Almost 1 month later, the federal government has yet to provide any evidence to justify Sean's detention. Sean missed Christmas with his family. He missed New Year's with his family. He missed his son's 2nd birthday last August. His daughter's 5th birthday is in March. Tomorrow is his 37th birthday. His children talk about him and look at him with the sense of loss in their eyes that would claw through any human soul. And I carry this in my heart with me every single day. The day after I found out, I was training some other teachers on instructional strategies for emergent multilingual learners, and I just hit a wall. I had to stop mid-sentence what I was saying to prevent from exploding in tears in front of my colleagues. When we say that a teacher's working conditions are students' learning conditions, this is what we mean. In addition to the impact on my family, we must acknowledge that educators in MCPS have DACA and temporary protected status, have undocumented parents and family members, and feel threatened every day by ICE, their lawlessness, and their virtually non-existent accountability. When it comes to passing the county values and unmasked ICE acts, there will be backlash. There will be naysayers. You will be met with opposition that still somehow justifies ICE's actions. And I ask you to put aside any of your personal and political discomfort. Act in the spirit of safety, humanity, and keeping families together. Hold ICE accountable for their lawlessness and terror. Codify county policies. Pass the county values and unmask ICE acts. Thank you.
I'm just going to highlight, again, thank you so much to our speakers, and we've just got a few more, but I'm just going to note so much of this is unfolding in our schools, and I think it really speaks to that both of these bills are supported by all 3 of the labor unions representing everybody who's working in our school buildings, MCEA, SEIU, Local 500, and MCAP, which represents the principals and administrators. So I thank them for that. Next up, representing Action in Montgomery, as well as the Pilgrim United Church of Christ in Wheaton, Reverend Michael Vanacore.
Good afternoon. I am the senior pastor of Pilgrim United Church of Christ in Wheaton, and I come here as a resident, as a faith leader, as a former labor organizer with SEIU Local 500, and as a proud clergy member of Action in Montgomery. I'm also the child of immigrants. I'm married to an immigrant, and I have children with dual citizenship who are of multiple races, ethnicities, languages, and belongings, like myself. And I come to you from all of those places and all of those belongings, urging the council that you pass the Values Act and the Unmask ICE Act. Now, we are all familiar as a faith leader, you can probably guess, I'm going to quote Exodus 23:9 that says, "You shall not oppress a resident alien. You know the heart of the alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." We should pass both of these acts because they help us live up to those values today and to that command. But I get tired of that framing. I get tired of it because it continues to draw this artificial line that here in Montgomery County we know doesn't exist between citizen and immigrant, native and foreigner, us and them, law abiders and outlaws, the good and the bad. But my own family, my own identity, my own experience as a pastor, as an organizer, as a resident, as a father of this community, shows me that none of us fall neatly into any of these categories. We're neither one nor the other. And those who were born in other countries, whether they have legal status or not, are as deeply embedded and vital to the future of this community as anyone else. And so when they come for those of us who were born in other countries, they come for our leaders, our breadwinners, our pastors, our dreamers, our fathers, our mothers, our husbands, our wives, our sisters, our brothers, our children. And as we can see from Minneapolis and the lawless and brutal actions going on there and around the country, they're coming for us as well. I love to go to the Wheaton Recreational Center with my 2 kids. If we don't pass the Values Act, we might be interrogated and profiled because they're brown and I speak Spanish with them. That's not the kind of future I want to have for Montgomery County. And that is why we need to ban ICE to the extent that we are capable and to the fullest extent of the law for many of our public facilities. For in God's eyes, just as there is no Jew or Greek, no East or West, no circumcised or uncircumcised, as the scripture says, there is no immigrant or native in God's eyes, no documented or undocumented. We are all equally citizens of the kingdom, and we are all children of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Vanacore. We just have 2 more speakers, and then we'll take questions. First, from the MoCo Pride Center, Philip Alexander Downey, who's the CEO.
Thank you all so much. Good afternoon. My name is Philip Alexander Downey, he, him pronouns, and I have the honor of serving as the Chief Executive Officer of the Montgomery County Pride Family and MoCo Pride Center, Inc. I'm here today because our community deserves to live without fear. Without fear of ICE, fear of masked agents, fear of unlawful detention, and without fear from being taken from the very places meant to serve and protect them. Let me be unmistakably clear, ICE is not above the law. When ICE enters our communities without warrants, hides behind masks, assaults community members, and operates in ways designed to evade accountability, that is not public safety, that is unlawful behavior. ICE officers have been caught on video assaulting people, shooting people, and in some documented cases, ICE officers have killed individuals, including U.S. citizens, during encounters with the public. And this violence is being carried out within a system where training requirements have been widely criticized as insufficient. Officers are issued badges and deadly weapons after limited preparation and enormous power is exercised with minimal oversight. This treatment of any human being is unacceptable. Documented, undocumented, citizen or non-citizen, permanent resident or asylum seeker, we do not value some lives more than others. We do not excuse violence based on paperwork. We are all human beings and we all deserve dignity, safety, and respect. Being undocumented is not a violent offense. It is a civil immigration matter, not a criminal act. It does not justify armed raids, racial profiling, excessive force, or lethal violence. Nothing about someone's immigration status makes them disposable. This violence has not been limited to undocumented immigrants. ICE has detained, assaulted, and endangered U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, often based solely on skin tone, accent, or perceived identity. That is racial profiling. It is unconstitutional, and it is unconscionable. What actually makes our communities unsafe is not immigrants. What makes our communities unsafe is unchecked enforcement, poor training, and unaccountable power. ICE's approach is not making us safer. It is wasting taxpayer dollars, destabilizing families, traumatizing children, and pushing people into the shadows where they are less likely to seek medical care, report crimes, or cooperate with public safety systems. That is not smart governance. That is reckless and dangerous public policy. This is exactly why these bills matter. The County Values Act puts clear, enforceable rules in place. ICE does not enter non-public county spaces without a valid judicial warrant. County staff are trained, signs are posted. Parking lots, garages, and vacant lots are no longer loopholes for intimidation or ambush. And the Unmask ICE Act makes something unmistakable. When agents hide their faces to avoid accountability, they are violating county law. These bills don't just state our values, they give our workers, our residents, and our institutions clear tools to protect people and uphold the law. The County Values Act and the Unmask ICE Act affirm a simple and powerful truth. County facilities, county parking lots, and county services are not hunting grounds for ICE. They are places of care and places of access. They are places where all people should be able to seek help without risking their freedom or their lives. At MoCo Pride Center, we serve people who live at the intersection of vulnerability and extraordinary courage. Many have survived violence, state harm, and systematic neglect. When ICE operates illegally and without identification, the harm is not abstract. It is immediate, it is traumatizing, and it is deeply dangerous. In Montgomery County, we choose the rule of law. We choose clarity and humanity. We believe power must be visible and accountable, and we believe our residents deserve to know who is acting in their name. To our community members, I see you, I love you, you absolutely belong here. You are not alone, you are not expendable, and you are worth protecting. To our county leaders, thank you for listening, thank you for your steadfast leadership, and thank you for choosing courage over complicity. And to anyone who believes justice can be masked, unaccountable, or violent, know this: our communities will not be terrorized, and Montgomery County will not be silent. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing us out, last but definitely not least, representing the Women's Democratic Club, Nicole Rios.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Rios, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Montgomery County Women's Democratic Club and the Latino Democratic Club in full support of the Unmask ICE Act and the County Values Act. These organizations exist to advocate for legislation and policies that serve people like me, the daughter of Colombian immigrants whom the county welcomed in the 80s. I'm grateful that my mother never had to fear walking me to school, or my father never had to fear being stopped while driving his work truck. I never imagined living in a reality where unidentified masked agents swarming civilians would become a regular practice. But unfortunately, this is the reality we are facing today. As the federal government tries to control the narrative around immigration enforcement, our communities are living the truth. We have seen the traumatic impact of violent ICE tactics. When officers conceal their identities, operate in unmarked vehicles, and appear in public spaces without accountability, public safety is undermined and the trust in law enforcement is destroyed. The Unmask ICE Act is about accountability, and the County Values Act is about protection. These bills did not emerge in a vacuum. They are the result of community engagement and reflect the urgent calls heard by our neighbors. Just this morning, I read a headline: ICE places ankle monitor on Maryland woman who provided U.S. birth certificate. A reminder that no one is off limits. Our safety is collective. When people are afraid to report crimes, go to work, seek medical care, or walk their children to school, all of us are less safe. At this moment, we cannot change the federal government. We cannot bar ICE from entering our county, but we can limit where and how immigration enforcement operates. We can protect county spaces, we can demand transparency, and we can slow ICE down. Last week, we saw overwhelming community support for the Trust Act. This solidarity reflects how deeply connected this county is. Immigration enforcement is not an issue that only impacts one group. It is a county-wide issue and requires a county-wide response. The County Values Act and the Unmask ICE Act are necessary, thoughtful, and urgent steps to protect our neighbors, uphold our shared values. I urge the County Council to act boldly and pass both bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you to all of our speakers. Happy to take any questions if there are any from the media. Yes, sir.
Question for both of you about your individual bills. Let me start with you, Councilmember Jawando, on the mask. Yesterday, we spoke to House Majority Leader David Moon. He has a bill to digitally unmask ICE agents, preserve data, GPS, things like this. Yours is a physical mask bill, and ICE repeatedly and DHS has repeatedly said they oppose such measures because they believe this is doxing. Could you respond to that? And would this prevent ICE agents from doing their jobs if they don't get to wear their mask?
Yeah, I appreciate it. First, I'll just to the Moon Delegate Moon's bill. I think that's a great bill. I think again we're going to have to do a lot of things to demand transparency. One of the reasons I quoted the judge in the California cases, who I hope will do the right thing, and he's a Reagan appointee, by the way, and asked, well, ICE didn't use masks prior to 2025. Why do you need them now? That does not stop them from doing their job. There's a lot of ways they're violating the law, but certainly stoking fear, not being accountable. Part of wearing a badge, and again, if you ask any of our police officers or our sheriffs or people who, Rockville, any of our municipalities, part of wearing a badge is building trust. On many police vehicles and law enforcement vehicles, it talks about trust. You are undermining that by wearing a mask, and you're keeping people, you're terrorizing people. So I don't think I think we have a legal strategy that could be successful, and I also don't think it will inhibit them from doing their jobs. It's not something they did. This is a new administration tactic, again, designed to terrorize and strike fear in people. There's no safety component to it. It's designed to strike fear in communities.
Councilmember, if I could just follow on the question. Question about enforcement on your bill, because you mentioned this. Some of it sounds like the Trust Act last week, but when it comes to things like making sure they're not gathering in parking lots, how would you enforce that? We have, agents who hand out parking tickets. Are these people going to be in a position where they have to take on ICE? You're a county council member. They laid hands on you in November. So are you putting people in positions that they might not be able to handle?
We are certainly not asking our residents to put themselves in danger. What we're doing is making clear that we do not consent to the use of any of our parking lots, garages, or vacant lots for immigration enforcement activity. But additionally, we are going to take steps to prohibit it as best as possible, to prevent it as best as possible. So written into the bill is that note about erecting barriers where feasible. So we've actually seen that work out in the public in some private spaces. That very lot where I was accosted by an ICE agent, where my arm was grabbed, where they tried to take my phone away from me. When I swung back through a few days later, all of those parking spots had traffic cones in them. That's not even a physical barrier, right? You can drive through there, but now that there are not innocent residents who are parking their cars there, where they could potentially be surprised by ICE agents who don't identify themselves and take them away without any presentation of warrants, et cetera, that enough can help to deter ICE activity in that area. And then we've seen in some, there's an apartment complex where ICE had been staging, went back a little while later after some conversations, and there is a physical barrier that now prevents entry into that parking lot. So these are things that we need to be doing as a county. We need to be proactive about. We need to have in place when a county staff person, as required by the bill, lets their director know that ICE has been seen in this area, has been seen using this lot. We need to be prepared to spring into action and do whatever we can to make sure that that lot is, we're not going to let that linger and become a staging ground for ongoing ICE terror. And I'll just say that in reference to the previous question about them doing their jobs, they're not doing real jobs right now. There's no jobs happening. They're out creating terror, spreading fear, kidnapping people, disappearing people, deporting them sometimes before they are able to even make contact with their families, much less a lawyer. So if that's the job we're stopping them from doing, I'm all in on stopping them from doing that job. Thanks. Yeah.
I just have one question. I just wanted to piggyback off of the enforcement angle.
you were saying before that, you wouldn't want to put private citizens in any sort of dangerous situation, but, normally, when there is a business owner that puts signage up and somebody violates that signage, they usually call the police. And so I was curious, does this decision, do these bills, how does the police play a role when it comes to, do these bills give Montgomery County Police, the power to, enforce these laws? How do they fit in this conversation?
I mean, it is a difficult legal question because we know that the federal government, as we have seen, is going to defend the actions of their agents, no matter what they are, to a ridiculous extreme. They are patently lying about what took place, even when we have it on camera from multiple different angles. So, that puts us in a legally difficult position of then having to fight things that we even know are completely right and within the bounds of the law. So I think that what this does is it opens up the opportunity for us to have some real meaningful conversations on what we can do, on what we're able to do, on what everyone is willing to do. Some of those are conversations when you look at are conversations to be had by private businesses and individuals, and some of those are conversations to be had as a county. But we can't even start to think about enforcement, much less saying where we stand as a county, if we can't step up and pass the laws that declare it that it is how it needs to be. And I think Will's going to speak to this also.
Sure, yeah, and I agree with that 100%. And I'll also add, your questions, you're a rational actor, right? You're presuming we're in a rational environment here where people are enforcing the law and abiding by the law, but they're not. And we've had a situation at schools, for example. I'm chair of the education committee where we have seen unmarked vehicles, a security guard or someone will say, "Hey, why are you here? Can you move on?" Right? That they're allowed to do that. We're not asking them to get into violent confrontations, but we have to step up. And when I say we, I mean all of us. Anyone in county government, that I would include law enforcement. I think they're a part of this too. They're doing the right thing, and they're trying to protect our community. If we see people, and our police chief has said this directly, if someone feels like they've been kidnapped and a kidnapping is reported, they're going to investigate that and try to find out what happened, right? And part of finding out what happened is who did it, right? And it's really hard to find out who did it if they're concealing their identity. So I think we have to have the legal framework, as Councilmember Mink said. This case will come down in California. This will be litigated. I'm sure it will go to Supreme Court. I think we have to put ourselves, unfortunately, in the position of doing everything we can by the letter of the law, but also how we're organizing and training our staff and residents to step up and stand up against the lawless and really terroristic federal government right now as it pertains to federal law enforcement and immigration enforcement.
Mr. Jawando, we happen to have someone at the White House, a reporter, who asked a question about what you've done here. So they've already reacted. Spokesperson saying this is short-sighted and so on and so forth, that you're endangering the community. And you talked about rational action. Do you have any fear that, you said if you're going to get sued, so be it. Any concern that this could backfire and draw more attention?
I mean, look, we're already in it. I mean, I think one of the reasons we had all these speakers, and we could have had many, many more, is because families are being ripped apart. The gentleman I mentioned, we spoke to his family this morning. He was walking his dog, was pulled off the street. The dog was brought back by ICE agents who were masked, and she thought he was killed. Her son was killed, the mom. And then he was gone for 77 days and then returned to his home. So clearly, they're just picking people up. And so it's already happening, number one. And they killed Renee Good. They shot her 3 times in the face. And she's not the only person who's been shot, right? So do I worry about that, and do we have to balance that? Absolutely. But it's already happening, and I think we've passed the point of we have to say what we believe, what our laws are, and who we're going to stand up for and protect. And I think there's solidarity. It's like I tell my kids, the way you stop a bully is you stand up to a bully. And this administration is worse than bullies. They're terrorists. They are attacking people for no reason. When they get it wrong, they don't apologize. They don't care. They're tearing families apart. So the idea that they're going to be coming at us more, they're already here. So
I'll just add, thank you, yes, that there is no community in the history of mankind that has resisted or ended an occupation by sitting as quietly as possible and hoping it goes away. That has never worked, it's not going to work, and we are not going to try that here because that just means we're sitting ducks. We're going to prepare.
I'm just wondering if you could speak to, are you aware of any cases either in this current administration or even before then of ICE attempting to actually access county facilities, whether it be schools or other county government buildings, and what has happened in those cases?
I am not personally aware of them doing that yet, which is exactly why I want to get this done now. The idea is to have all those in place beforehand. We have had ICE directly in front of our schools. We have had ICE directly in front of other county facilities. And so if that's not a big enough red flag and warning sign that we need to be ready, much less looking at communities that have already been overrun by ICE activity, to me, we would be fools to sit and keep waiting. And it would not be fair to our community members to say, we're going to wait until you all are attacked and kidnapped in a county library for us to be ready, which, to be very clear, we're not doing. The executive branch is already preparing. What this does is codify that. It adds additional assurances for community members. It ensures that all staff are going to be fully trained, and it ensures that there's signage, et cetera. But the time to take action and have those preparations in place is right now, is last month, as soon as we can possibly get it done. And I'll note also in reference to the earlier question about, residents who might, want to jump in front of ICE because they know that ICE is breaking the law, that part of this is actually to try to prevent that and mitigate that as much as possible. I have heard from actually many teachers and school staff, especially when I think of who I've heard, I think it's many and exclusively our school employees who have said, I will get arrested before I let ICE lay a finger on any of my kids. And I hear that all over the county. And I love our school staff, and I'm so glad that our schools are secure buildings. So what I say to that is I appreciate the energy, and also we have proper infrastructure and protocols in place to make sure that we don't put you in that position to feel compelled to do that. Because even if they are breaking the law, that is not a defense necessarily in federal court, and so we don't want to put anybody in that position to be, legally unsafe or physically unsafe. What we need to do is what MCPS has done, which is to have those strong protocols to say we have doors that lock, and nobody is getting past those locked doors without a very serious legal review. I've seen no evidence that ICE would pass such a review.
Yes. Go ahead.
Were the school district and the police involved in the crafting of these bills?
Yes, they did. There have been conversations with the executive branch and with schools along the way that help to inform, I'll say, certain County Values Act, but I think the same is true for unmasked guys.
Yeah. Yes, and some of the exceptions in the Unmasked ICE Act, for example, came out of conversations with our police staff directly. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you to our advocates. Yeah.